At first, he said she did it out of anger. And then he said it doesn't matter why she did it. In a letter to Congress, Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito wrote, "My wife's reasons for flying the flag are not relevant for present purposes." And so a Supreme Court justice is refusing to say why his wife angrily, according to him, flew the American flag upside down in what Justice Alito has suggested was an angry run-in with neighbors who posted an anti-Trump sign on their front lawn. Justice Alito has tried to pretend that there was no political context to the dispute. But if the dispute is about your neighbor's anti-Trump sign, that is a political dispute, and you are on Trump's side. The Washington Post is reporting tonight several inconsistencies in what Justice Alito has said about the incident, including inconsistencies about when it actually happened, how long the flag was up, and inconsistencies about why the American flag was flying upside down at his home. In an op-ed piece in the Philadelphia Inquirer, Susan Sullivan writes, "Flying the flag upside down at your home is more than a hint of political impropriety. It is a tangible demonstration of support for those who continue to assert that the election was stolen. It is the chosen insignia of those who tried to hijack the election by attacking the Capitol on January 6th and gut the very constitutional democracy that established the Supreme Court." Susan Sullivan, the author of that op-ed piece, is a former law clerk for Samuel Alito. She writes, "Justice Alito may or may not be biased in favor of the former president, but the flag flying upside down at his home in the past unequivocally telegraphs reasonable questions about his impartiality in cases involving Trump. These questions, separate and apart from the crisis in confidence that such conduct may raise for the court, mandate Justice Alito's recusal from these cases. The gravity of the implications of Justice Alito's refusal to recuse himself from these decisions cannot be understated. At stake is not only the independence of the court itself, but also its credibility and its role as a protector of our constitutional democracy." Joining us now is Susan Sullivan, an assistant professor of political science at Temple University. She served as a law clerk for Judge Samuel Alito when he was on the Third Circuit Court of Appeals before he was elevated to the Supreme Court. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Was it difficult for you to come to the point of writing this and saying this publicly?
Well, yes, it was. I think the first thing I had to do was overcome my shock at this because it was so unexpected. I was aghast when I saw those photographs because, I've never known Justice Alito to be anything other than an honorable man, to be a man of integrity. So when I saw these flags, or this flag, just to go back to what you just mentioned, it is irrelevant whether Mrs. Alito flew it or not. The fact is that flag was there. That flag is an irrefutable symbol, not just for people who still challenge the legitimacy of the election, but who actually violently attacked the Capitol. So this is not an insignificant symbol. So irrespective of why it is there, who put it there, it shouldn't have been there. The problem is that flag, is incendiary, and it cannot do anything other than raise a reasonable inference of bias. As I said in my piece, I don't know if Justice Alito is biased or not. But I don't think any reasonable person could not think that telegraphs at least the appearance of bias. And that is so important. This is a time when the U.S. Supreme Court, trust and faith in the U.S. Supreme Court is waning. Justice has to be seen to be done, right? That's what we always say. So when you have a situation like this, justice isn't being seen to be done. So I think this decision to recuse himself is misguided. I think it's wrong. I think it's bonkers. It's not a legal term, but I think it is. And I think it's dangerous because of the cases that are before the court at the moment.
The standard for recusal is the appearance of impropriety, just the appearance of it to a reasonable person. And Justice Alito says that no reasonable person would conclude this, and he says that this does not, as he put it, meet the applicable standard for recusal. But the applicable standard is the appearance of impropriety.
Well, I think generally, yes, it's generally accepted in the legal sphere that it is the appearance of impropriety, precisely because we want to maintain faith and confidence. And if there is any suggestion that there may be bias here, we want to make sure that we step back from that. I think the federal statute says if it raises reasonable questions about bias, I don't think it particularly says the appearance of impropriety, but that's what that's for. Clearly, if there is bias, you need to remove yourself. But because of the integrity of the court, because of the way in which people are looking at the court now and their lack of faith, and they're disgust with the way they see the court acting, the appearance of impropriety, just the mere suggestion of impropriety, has to result in somebody stepping back from the decisions, especially decisions that are before the court right now. These people, as we said, this symbol of these people who attacked the Capitol, they support Trump unconditionally. They support Trump unconditionally. So if you've got cases before the court that directly relate not just to the former president, but to criminal cases that involve that election process, the case in Georgia alleging interference with the Georgia count, the case in D.C., Jack Smith's case, that has allegations that have directly to do with the January 6th event. So the stakes have never been higher, and recusal is, to me, it just defies logic that one would not recuse themselves from a case like this. The stakes are too high.